Nigeria Airways, founded in 1958, running its operation in the name we now know it as from 1958 till its ultimate demise in 2003 when it stopped its services. At its closure, the airline had amassed a total debt of 1.5 trillion naira, not million or billion, but trillion, 1,500 billion naira. It serves as a reminder to the nation the foundation on which Nigeria is built upon: distrust, mismanagement, poor planning, corruption, and sheer short-sightedness.
Surely take you there from Lagos to New York. No stop of us on the way, just like a dream. We'll surely take you there from Lagos to New York. Nigeria Airways takes you there.
Nigeria Airways, we'll take you there.
We'll take you there.
Lagos to New York, we'll take you there.
We'll take
Nigeria Airways, our experience counts.
It serves as an example of what the country is and continues to be. The WAAC, or the West African Airways Corporation, was founded in 1958, and it will eventually be rebranded a decade later in 1971 to what we now know as Nigeria Airways. It was the flag carrier for the country from 1961 onward. It was owned 100% by the government, although it was managed by a few foreign companies like the British Airways and the Dutch Airways KLM. By 1970, the airline had a crew of about 3,000 workers and several aircraft flying around the world, but with their focus being in West Africa, having flights from the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos to places like Accra, Ghana, Benin Republic, Dakar, Senegal, and other West African hubs. They also had international destinations in the Middle East, Europe, and North America. Things seemed to be on the up for Nigeria Airways, as they had built quite a reputable brand for themselves. The nation was on a rebuild after the devastation of the Biafran War, and Nigeria Airways was at the forefront of this rebuild, being the Nigerian ambassador in the sky. It quickly became a big deal to work under the corporation, and they took pride in their workers, having strict guidelines for cabin crew members. For example, female cabin crew members were expected to be of high value, beautiful young ladies, and were not allowed to get married within the first 5 years of working under the airline, a rule that would discourage a lot of young aspiring air hostesses from joining, but nevertheless, business was booming. You see, Nigeria had just discovered oil in 1958 and were in a sweet spot, being the forerunner in the race for the development of Africa. It was a beautiful sight. Although having a fleet of aircraft of its own, Nigeria Airways would also lease aircrafts as a way of saving money. They would lease aircraft from other airlines like Ghana Airways, Ethiopian Airways, and others. Sometimes, the profits from these flights were shared with the leasing company, and most of the leased aircraft were used for international duties. The 70s and 80s were truly the best years for the company, purchasing new aircraft every year, increasing their fleet, and also expanding their destinations. But this wouldn't be the case for too long. The airline would face calamity when in November 1983, an aircraft approaching Enugu crashed. Out of the 72 passengers and crew members on board, unfortunately, 23 would not make it out alive. These were the first signs of the incoming doom that was about to befall the airline company. All this agitation made worse when in December of the same year, just a month after the devastating crash, there would be a coup in the country. Democratically elected President Shehu Shagari was overthrown by a new military regime led by none other than Muhammadu Buhari. At first, the Buhari regime seemed to have good plans for the airways, taking a more Afrocentric approach to running it. Nigeria Airways had a contract with the Dutch Airways, KLM. It was a sort of recruitment scheme where Nigerians would learn the ins and outs of running an airline company, and up until this point, it ran smoothly. Not until the Buhari government decided this method was unfit and unsuitable to their plans they had for Nigeria. They then appointed Bernard Banfa as a new managing director, and most of the KLM trained workers were let off. This is where the cracks truly began to show. Hey there, these videos take weeks and hours of research, editing and animation from our team, and we're dedicated to bringing you quality content like this one. We have released content just suited for you, and even better content on the way just for you. If you like our style, let us know in the comment section, and let us know your opinions also on this video in the comment section. We will be looking out for all your comments. Stay tuned for new content coming. And in all fairness to the new administration, the company was a bit overstaffed and some workers did need to be let off, but it was the execution of this new plan that ended up starting the downward spiral that the company fell into. The letting off of the trained professionals too rapidly meant there was less experience. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which was basically the money lender for big corporations like Nigeria Airways, started to change their policies and made them much stricter. This, coupled with the ungodly levels of corruption in the company and the country at large, made the situation with the IMF worse. The airline was running at a loss. They had accumulated way too much debt than they were actually making, and some of the funds that were meant to go into the paying off of these debts were never seen again. They just vanished into thin air. The debts incurred were too massive. Some of the aircraft had to be impounded or straight up seized by debt collectors. By 1987, the airline was suspended by the International Air Transport Association, IATA. The airline had debts of approximately $250 million, with a revenue of about $5 million per month and an expenditure of about $5.1 million a month. The airline made a monthly profit of about 2% of what it owed. At this point, of course, the brand name had already been tarnished, and the reputation it had built within the international community had been burnt to ashes. The airline was forced to double their ticket prices to make enough money to pay off its debts, but this just caused the domino effect of catastrophe. First, increasing prices by double meant less customers. Less customers meant less money to be able to pay those debts off in the first place, so they were then forced to cut prices, which led to poor quality of service, which then led to even less customers. This downward spiral went on for years and years on end. Down the road of destruction, they would have to sack a lot of their workers and cancel less profitable flight routes. In 1991, the airline would face even more drama when a flight carrying over 200 passengers and crew members heading to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, crashed. This was like adding fuel to an already ferocious burning fire. Unfortunately, all passengers and crew members on board the aircraft died, all 261 of them. 3 years later, in 1997, Nigeria Airways was banned from operation within the United Kingdom amid safety concerns for its citizens and travelers. The Nigerian government tried everything to bring back the once glorious airline back to life. They tried privatizing the company, they tried new managements, both local and international, but the damage had been done already. There was no going back. The name Nigeria Airways was deep in the mud of distrust and carelessness, giving a very terrible image to the world of what Nigeria was. And by the early 2000s, all partners they had once worked with over the years started terminating contracts and agreements. And in 2003, seeing that the Nigerian Airways project was already a lost cause, the Nigerian government decided to put the airways to rest and liquidated it. There have recently been talks about a new Nigerian-led airline, but we shall see what the future holds. In the meantime, this has been a great journey from all of us at Kampala Studios.